Welcome to SaaS Stories, hosted by Joana Inch of Hat Media. On this show, we speak to tech and SaaS business owners and leaders about their journey in the SaaS world. Tune in as we share success stories and discuss ideas to take your SaaS business to the next level. So let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Stories. This week, I am super excited to be joined by a special guest all the way from Copenhagen, Mr. Lars Grønnegaard. Lars, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm super excited to be here. And yeah, Australia, Denmark, that's quite some distance there.
Quite the distance. I do have hopes that I will visit one day. I've been told that Denmark, especially in the winter time, is like a winter wonderland. So it's definitely on my bucket list. I'm a big fan of the snow and I cannot wait.
Yep, summers are great here too. If you're in Australia, that's your winter then.
Yes. I'd rather, I wouldn't mind escaping our summers sometimes. They've been very wet lately. So maybe the next one. So Lars is the CEO and co-founder of Dreamdata, a leading B2B revenue attribution platform that helps build, repeat, and scale success. Now, if you are a marketer in the B2B space, similar to myself, I am sure that you've had many challenges proving the revenue through a lot of the tools that you use. So I'm very curious to learn more about Dreamdata, Lars, and some of the stories that you will share with me today. But let's start with the very first question. Tell me about yourself.
Yes, so as you said, I'm a co-founder of Dreamdata. Before that, I came out of product management. So I worked at a successful SaaS scale-up in Copenhagen called Trustpilot. It's also active in Australia. So it's a review platform. So I ran product there together with one of the other co-founders in the company, Ole. So we were running product and tech together there. So that's my background. Before that, I have a history in consulting. So way back in sort of the early 2000s, we founded a UX consulting company in Copenhagen before anybody was ever, I don't even know if anybody knew what UX was back then. So we came up with this company, which was a consulting company helping, especially like big Danish corporates, figure out sort of why were people not using all those magnificent solutions that they were building. And sometimes it was because nobody actually wanted them, and sometimes because they couldn't figure out how to use them, and there were many reasons. And we came up with this sort of mix of research and sort of conceptual design as a discipline. We didn't invent it; other people invented it in other places at the same time. But it was we were definitely at the forefront of that evolution here.
Yeah, and I love what you just said there. I mean, I've heard this quote so many times in my experience working with SaaS founders. It's, usually it takes some fantastic creative and great minds to create this product. But when it comes to going to market, it's like, well, we'll just build it and they'll come, which hardly ever happens. Never in this day and age, that's for sure. So tell me the story of how you launched Dreamdata. What gap did you see in the market? How did you come up with the idea? What's the story there?
Yeah, I think we can maybe go back a little bit to, it just excites me when you say this, when you build it, they will come, because it's such a fundamental flaw that many people make. And I think our thesis when we were building the company was maybe a little bit the other way around, that, if they come, we will build it. And I think that's a much more healthy way of inventing or sort of building an early stage startup. Or if you're in a product organization and you're sort of taking on a new big project of a new product area, start with figuring out if they'll actually come and then build it. Don't go the other way around. Of course, sometimes you're lucky and it works. But I would say we started Dreamdata from our experiences at Trustpilot. And really what was going on there was we had a very successful go-to-market. It was sort of a mix of outbound sort of sales-led. We also had a product-led motion. So we had this huge consumer-oriented review website, but that was also driving a lot of business owners into our sales funnel. And of course, we had a marketing team as well, and they were also doing a lot of activities. So we had, you can say, many things working to try to drive sales, really, and revenue for the SaaS business. And it was working. So that was great. But the problem was when we wanted to optimize it, let's say we wanted to grow faster than we were growing or more efficiently, it became a problem because nobody really knew how it was working, apart from the fact that customers were signing deals, they were paying, that was great, they were renewing, all that was great. But if we wanted to, say, grow faster or more efficiently, we needed to know, what is it that actually works? Is it this product part? Is it some of the marketing campaigns? Is it the outbound sales part, or is it some mix of it? I think it's a pretty fundamental question that lots of people grapple with if they are in this type of SaaS B2B setting, because
For sure.
Really what's going on is that you have a lot of, you're going to market in a very sort of modern way. So you're sort of, using lots of tools to make it more efficient, and you're servicing your customers in many different channels before they become customers. All good, but it creates this data problem that there's no place to go for the truth about the customer. Of course, there's a truth in the CRM system. That's the sales truth. We had, great tracking data about what was going on in the product. That was also a truth about the customer, and marketing had their truth about the customer, which was what, the Google Ads analytics said, and like different analytics products that ads providers were giving them. But the unified sort of the sum of all that didn't exist. And we needed it because we, of course, as a person, I'm a type of person, I want to make things better. I want to make things more efficient, effective. So, hey, we had to do this, but there wasn't really a product that solved it for us. And we looked for products, and then we ended up saying, okay, we'll just, there's a lot of products that help you move data into data warehouse. So we did that. And then, we had some great data engineers, so we set them to work on it and said, okay, we want the data put together like this. They put the data together, and then we could do these beautiful analysis that we wanted, saying, okay, this campaign actually doesn't work. And okay, it's great that we have all these signups for the free product, but it actually takes 1 year before they become customers. Can we make it more effective? And yes, it's great sales. You're doing a lot of outbound sales. But if you were focusing on these types of free signups, we would have more success, and the whole thing could be more effective. So we had lots of great findings, and we were thinking, okay, this is a fundamental problem. It doesn't seem like something that is so special per company. Like, we were using Salesforce, and we were using segment.com for tracking. We had HubSpot as our marketing automation product. We had like everything about our company that Trustpilot was quite normal. So why wasn't there a product that could fix this for us? And that was basically what the thesis, the founding thesis of Dreamdata as a company. And then we went sort of the, if they come, we will build it path. So we went out and tried to find people that actually wanted this product. So we had sort of done this internal project of building. So we knew it could be done. And we had good ideas that, okay, you can build a product. I think that's always a good thing to know. And we knew that it was sort of useful because we liked it. And we were borderline the sort of type of people that would be using it. But what about other people out there? It's always the most dangerous assumption when founding a company or building a product is that somebody will want the product that you're building. I think that's the most risky assumption at all.
Yeah.
And building it to figure it out is just a very, very expensive way of learning, because it, like, our product, I would say, to a real product probably took a couple of years before we had a real product. Before that was various prototypes, but let's say we had sat down for 2 years and built, and then discovered that nobody actually wanted this fantastic thing we dreamed of, right? So we went the other path and said, okay, if they come, we'll build it. We went out, tried to sell it based on slide decks and presentations, and then when we had some people saying, okay, we actually want this, we said, okay, Could you tell us like more formally that you want it, that if you get something that's useful, you'll at least pay for it. We've got commitment. And then we built something for them, and we did this a few times, and like that was the path to a very early product, which was more of a prototype, just getting these customers to actually commit to paying for it, and also seeing if they did use it once they paid for it. And like, I think that's a healthy path.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's every SaaS founder's nightmare, build it, spend 2 years building it, go past MVP level, nobody comes. But yeah, no, I think in your case, there's definitely a market for it. I mean, I've been in the digital marketing space for 15 years. I've used the likes of Google Analytics, HubSpot, Salesforce. I've seen what they can do. The data is quite powerful, but again, I think when you have so many, different apps and campaigns talking to each other, it can get a little bit lost. You can kind of lose a sense of, well, what's really working here and what's not. So how is Dreamdata different from, say, HubSpot or Salesforce? Like, how does it take it one step further and fix some of those gaps?
I think the fundamental thing is that each of these products have their own sort of silo of truth. And our product, the fundamental idea of the product is to take those silos and sort of create one unified data platform out of it, so that you can do the type of analytics that you need to be more efficient. I think we also have, I would say at Trustpilot, we saw other things that you wanted to do with this data platform. Because, say, for instance, if you want to do brilliant retargeting or like audience building, or if you want to get Google or LinkedIn to optimize their ads, you basically have to have this data set. Like we have, let's say you want LinkedIn can receive information about who actually converted later, like who actually became business. And if you can figure out how to tell LinkedIn that, then they can say, then we'll serve more of this type of ads. So they can do sort of machine learning and advanced stats, and then they can optimize ads if you give them that data. So there's a lot of things you can do with this type of data platform that's all sort of pointing in this direction of making all of your go-to-market more efficient. So I think that's the fundamental difference, is this holistic perspective on the customer, that we insist like on being able to bring in all data. Like some of the data is very easy to bring in because we have integrations that pull in the data. Sometimes you have to do uploads of the data, but there's nothing stopping us from having a complete view of the customer, so that when you're saying, okay, did this campaign actually work? Then you can say, okay, yes, like some of the people that we hit with this campaign, they actually became sales qualified leads, or they became pipeline, or we sold to them. And the other way around, you also find that some of the campaigns, we do that ourselves all the time. Like we find campaigns that don't work. So we try a new campaign. We try it because we think it will work. And then we look. And if the idea is that this should be helping us drive, say, new leads into our top of funnel and nothing is happening, then we'll just close it down and get another idea. Yeah.
No, that sounds good. And I'm not going to name any names, but I've heard a lot of clients say, with data, a lot of things don't integrate as well. So I think integration is key. I'm glad to hear, that that's kind of a big part of Dreamdata. I think also just reading the data. I've heard a lot of people say, oh God, I need a PhD in this tool to actually understand what it's telling me here. So even though it can be used really well to capture data, it's just about, understanding it in an easy way. A lot of people are visual as well. So maybe a visual representation with the data is something I hear about a lot of these traditional platforms struggle with.
Yeah, I think for us, I think if we can at all create these situations where you actually don't have to do anything, it's sort of, you set it up, you connect the data, and then we help you optimize. Like we have a few cases where it works, and we'd like to build more and more of that, where you don't have to sit every day and compare campaigns, go to your ads manager, disable the campaign, invest one another. It's a lot of work. And if you can reduce some of that work by making some of these efficiencies happen automatically, it's great. Like if you can put it on sort of autopilot, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's a marketer's dream.
Everybody wants that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've told us the story of how you came up with Dreamdata and how you launched. I guess the next question really is, how did you scale and grow? Like, what has been some campaigns that have been instrumental to your success?
I think I can say one of the things we did, which was instrumental to us, we were originally 2 co-founders that came from Trustpilot. And then as one of the companies that we were trying to say, okay, will they actually come? We met another Danish Copenhagen startup. And in that startup, there was a guy called Stefan, who was the head of marketing. And we convinced him to join. And I think given that the product very much sort of targets go-to-market people and marketers in particular, having someone like Stefan on board was instrumental to sort of the early success of the company, because he has he is essentially the target person for a lot of our communication. So having somebody who is that target person helps a lot when you are communicating with people. So I think that has been instrumental. Convincing Stefan to join as a co-founder was very important. So it's like, if it had just been me and Ole as the founding team, I think it would have been a different situation.
Yeah.
So I think that was very crucial for us to be a team that had a sort of fundamental understanding of the people that we're selling to. I think that's a key thing. And then I would say overall, we had a few things along the path that I think worked really well for us. At some point, we got to a place where the product became so automated that we could offer a free trial of the product, that we could sort of say, hey, you don't take a word for it. Come in, connect your data, see that it works. That was very important, because it just took a lot of proof building from the sales team away. Now they can say, okay, you don't have to take my word for it. Go in, connect your data, take a look. You can see that it joins, you can see that it works. So that was very fundamental. And then the other thing was that Stefan did a lot of things in the early days of the company, tried many different things. We tried many different ways of sort of like what would be our most successful channel. We tried outbound sales. We did some paid, of course. But at one point, Stefan came and said, okay, we're going to try just getting our sales team, which was 2 people, plus myself, plus a couple of marketing people. We'll all try to see if we can get, I think, to 500,000 views on LinkedIn in 3 months or something.
Okay.
So he made a competition to try to say, okay, let's try to post on LinkedIn, be very active and see what happens. And I think the thesis was there's a lot of marketers on LinkedIn. They spend a lot of time there. So if we can connect with them and communicate with them there, it's going to be good for our company. So we tried that. And that worked out really well. We had like a few posts that got picked up by sort of major influencers in the space.
Okay.
And that actually drove real interest for our product and sign-ups for the free product and deals in the pipeline, and eventually close one business. So that was also a very fundamental thing. So this mix of having a marketer on board when you're selling to marketers, I think that was good. LinkedIn and a free product and a free trial version of the product was very important.
Got it. So I'm just going to summarize this. All right, first step, have someone on your team that understands the target audience. Maybe they are the target audience, or they used to be. They're now on your team. They can shed that, those insights, those pain points, those challenges. Because if you have someone that doesn't understand that target audience, there's a lot of guesswork there. Like, what message do they want to see? What content do we need to create for them? But yeah, definitely having that resource is quite handy, I think. So because you have a really good understanding of who your niche is and what their challenges are and how you can address those. Second thing, the trial, that's a very interesting one. I know a lot of SaaS companies do offer trials. I don't think a lot of them have as much success with the trials. And I always question, the reason for that. Is it because the trial's too short? Is it because, during the trial process, you're not actually teaching, your clients on how to use the software as well as you could be? Those are always questions I ask around the free trials. I mean, what was your experience with the free trials? Did a lot of people kind of convert? Was there a lot of questions around, well, how do I use the product? I
think we definitely ended up helping people a lot. It was also, early days for the product. So we had to do a lot of helping. Some of our salespeople got to become very knowledgeable of the product so that they could actually help people. We also had to, because like some of the values that you get from our product, especially if you're sort of like, I am the marketer, we made some new business, what was my impact on that? Like sometimes that takes some time to get to that answer because your impact probably happened 6, 12, 18 months before that. So in some cases, like getting to that answer takes a long time. So I think we have had to learn how do you in the trial process also, it's also the sales process, sort of turn that around and say, hey, you're running campaigns right now. What's happening from those campaigns? Okay, you're getting some clicks, you're getting some views, but are you getting contacts? Are these contacts going to the CRM? Are they engaging the way you want? Like there's a lot of things that with this type of product, you can get early value. But sometimes the things that people come in and ask for is something that they can only have after a year because it takes so long to collect enough data to answer that question. But it doesn't mean that the early value, I personally feel, is much more real value, because the other one is sort of like, yeah, see, I did something important. It's like, yeah, of course, great. But really, like what I want is something that says, I'm doing something right now. Can I figure out if that's good or bad? Can I get rid of the bad stuff or the things that don't really do any good for the company and reinvest? Like, that type of early engagement or early value from the product, I think, is much more important. So we had to sort of like, how do you educate the customer on this? So there was a lot of sales conversations. So that a free trial doesn't mean no sales. Yeah, I think probably the opposite. I think for us, it meant more successful sales, but it wasn't like, oh, you want a free trial here, and then I call you back in a month and then I can close the deal. Yeah, that's not how it worked for us. It was a lot of investment. And I think that's what people sometimes discover, that investment is not, it's too big for some companies. They figure out that, hey, if I sell without the trial, I can actually close an equal amount of deals or slightly fewer deals, but I can process more. So the close rate goes down a bit, but I can process more, so it's more efficient. And then I only onboard the ones that did buy. So I'm not saying that free trial is sort of the perfect solution for other companies. I think it depends so much on what you're doing. I think we have had, because it's a fairly complex data product, a lot of people didn't initially trust us that we would be able to do what we said. So I think being able to prove that to people was quite important. And then the other thing is setting some realistic goals, or what can you actually see in a trial? Like if you trial the product for 14 days or 4 weeks, you will not see the truth about the deals you closed, because we won't have enough data to tell you that. And also, some parts of the product does require someone to sit with you and configure it so that it, matches your world. I think setting a right expectation around the trial was important. So for me, I think the most fundamental thing is just saying that we did a lot of things. They worked for us. in general, people, you shouldn't assume that it will work for other people. You should always have an open mindset and say, hey, I'm going to try something and see if it works for me. Just like posting on LinkedIn was super important for us. But let's say you're selling to medical professionals. I don't think that that's a good path for you, right?
No.
Because they're not living on LinkedIn. But, so you have to engage somewhere else where those people, where you can build an audience. And sometimes that place doesn't exist. Then maybe the right thing for you is to say, oh, that place doesn't exist, and I'll build that place. I have a friend, she's building a company in the legal tech space. And, they tried this LinkedIn tactic, it just didn't work for them because legal professionals are not on LinkedIn, or they at least not very active. So she went around and said, okay, let's build a community for internal legal counsel, because that doesn't exist. And now she's hugely successful doing that, because a lot of of course, people want community. They want a place to talk about their work and like how to do it better.
Yeah.
So that was a good path for her. Where for us, I think building a community for marketers is super tough, because there's like huge, like Pavilion, for instance, like there's these huge paid communities for marketers. Like you don't want to compete with that. It's a product in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, it already exists. No, LinkedIn, definitely the right place. I mean, it's something I've experienced great success with working in the world of B2B. I love that you say as well, managing expectations. So obviously in your case, if you had offered like a 14-day trial, that never would have worked, because as you said, it's not enough time to get data. I mean, in the space of B2B, especially for enterprise clients, the B2B sales cycle can go anywhere from 6 up to 24 months, right? So the campaigns that you're running, it takes time, and there's a lot of data that you need to collect to learn from. I think definitely that expectation is important. One thing I always do with my campaigns is I kind of do a really deep dive of the data every 90 days or 3 months. I feel like that's the sweet spot. I think if you do it any earlier, you don't have enough data, but if you do it any later, then you're kind of missing opportunities there. What would you say is your sweet spot for analyzing? I mean, obviously we analyze data on a daily basis, but really taking a deep dive, what would be that time frame?
So again, I think it's so individual. Like, what is the spend you're looking at? We're a relatively small company. Our spend isn't massive. So it means that we have to collect data for some time before it makes any sense to look at it. We do look at things earlier than 90 days. I think what we do is we'll look at different sort of proxies or things that we think indicate that the campaign will work. Let's say if I expect it to, at some point, drive revenue in the end, I'm not going to wait until I see business closing from the campaign. But let's say the campaign is driving traffic to my website that is I'm just taking that as an example, like it's also probably the simplest thing to look at. Something is you buying people to come to your website. Now, the first thing you can look at is, are they at all sort of, before they convert or do anything, you can look at whether they are meeting your ICP criteria. Are they the right type of companies? Are they the right size of companies? Are they from the right regions? Is there any potential in what you're doing? So if you have something that can tell you also before people convert, if you can just, based on say IP lookup or something, you'll find, okay, are they a good fit for us, these companies? That's an early indicator of whether this is going to be helpful at all. And you can look at that immediately. Let's say you're only in Europe and you're getting a ton of American traffic. Well, maybe that's an opportunity and you should be looking at it. But there are other cases, like you are driving a lot of consumer traffic and your target is B2B manufacturing companies. And that's not what's coming in. You're just seeing a lot of individual consumers without any company association. So it's bad traffic. So I think if you have a way of measuring quality of traffic, you do that immediately. Then you look at the leads. So the actual sort of like whatever way they convert on your website, are they a good fit? Do they convert in reasonable numbers? And then now you will be going into 3 and 6 months. Do these leads actually convert to pipeline? Or other meaningful places in your sort of pipeline process? For us, the gold standard is they become sales qualified leads. That's the gold standard. And then after a long time, we'll look at, do they actually convert to new business? But that can take, like you say, from an initial campaign to that type of result can be 6, 12 months, not unusual, even for a company like ours.
Absolutely. No, you're spot on. I think that it is very individual. I think I initially got my 90 days from, I read an interesting book by John Dewar called Measure What Matters, and he's the brain behind Google, Intel. So I thought I'm going to follow this structure. And a lot of the times it works well. But at the same time, I've definitely experienced instances where, yes, you're right, it is very individual. We probably should have looked at the data earlier, in some cases later. So absolutely. And I think that kind of brings me on to the next question, really, about, okay, so what you've had success with in the world of marketing, as well as, obviously having insights from your co-founder. What were some of the challenges that you came across when trying to reach B2B marketers? I mean, you mentioned trust as being one of them, maybe reluctance to, is this going to work? What were some of the other challenges that you faced?
I think in terms of, I think we've, like I said, been quite good at connecting with that audience. The founding team, we probably have different problems because for Stefan, of course, who has sort of a natural understanding of the audience, that doesn't exist for us. So understanding the audience, how do marketers think? I think that has been maybe not a challenge, but at least sort of a learning process for us. I would say sometimes the one of the things we can be struggling with is this sort of like, is the engagement you say negative or positive? Is it reactive or proactive? Are you looking to sort of defend your position and say, hey, I'm spending money, I'm doing a great job, give me a product that helps me prove that I'm doing well, versus sort of a person who's coming in saying, hey, I'm doing a great job, I need a product that can help me do it even better. And that, I think, is a fundamental sort of still a challenge for us to steer that conversation, because if you are in this defensive position, well, there is a huge risk that when you take in a product like ours, it's actually going to show that some of what you do is not working, because that's natural. But if you haven't been measuring, like you describe a really good process, you have a structured approach, you do this, I think it's a great, like, whether to measure after 1 month or 3 months. The main thing is having a principle that says, I have a process, I'm structured, I measure, I improve, I make decisions based, but some people don't have that, and they still have a feeling that they're doing a great job, and they are probably also doing a relatively good job, but they could be doing a way better job, right? And I think that conversation, sort of like, how do you go from this defensive, like, prove that I'm doing a good job, because the risk is they'll find things that are not good, and then they will not like the product, as opposed to saying, okay, hey, whatever job you're doing now, you can improve for sure. Everybody can improve, everybody can do better. Our product helps you do that. Like, changing that conversation, I think, is complicated.
Absolutely. I think definitely as a marketer, if you're open to, being aware of things that you've done that may have not worked, and, being kind of open to taking that constructive criticism, and just, having the tools to then use that to change what you're doing and make it more effective is great. I think a lot of marketers might, be running campaigns that are not very effective, and they think that they usually start exploring software and think, oh, the software is going to fix everything. It's going to fix everything. But in most cases, it doesn't, because, you haven't actually addressed the key points, and the software is actually helping you to So they've got those expectations of the software, but really it's, it takes a little bit more work than that.
It's a lot of work. And I think that another thing about the sort of our target group as marketers is that it's just, in general, marketers in the current economic environment are challenged. So that's, you can say for our product, which helps marketers be more effective. Okay, great. It's, in that sense, it's a good product for the sort of times we're in. But on the other hand, it requires marketers who are able to sell that internally in the company, because marketers are in general being challenged by CFOs, or if you have a strong ops team. So they're challenged. And if you are not able to sort of bring a kind of the CFO type of argumentation to the table, or arguments to the table, then you're challenged, right? You're getting, budgets are cut, people are fired left and right. It's like, so that's a challenge for us, like just bringing a sale from say, through our sales pipeline, which can take 30 to 60 days. Like, it's not, it has not been unusual to see people leave the company in that process, right? And that is challenging. I think we of course try to help our people who are interested in buying. We're helping them make that argument and help, because fundamentally we believe that marketing is great. Like, as a go-to-market tactic, you need marketing in there. Like, you can't, like most markets, like some markets you can sell your way through using outbound, but the people we talk to, they can't. Like, they need marketing as a component and a core component in their go-to-market. So fundamentally, we believe marketing is great and it should be there. And we want to help we want to help the marketers stay there and have that impact in the go-to-market of the companies. So we try to help, but it is challenging at these times. And we also see that in sort of retention of customers, that, if people have not fully adopted the product, or, even it can be down to like it's a position of the marketer in the organization. If you're not strongly positioned as someone who is a key component in creating revenue for the organization, it's just super risky. And, that then reflects on our business, of course, also.
Yeah, definitely a challenge a lot of marketers face, I think. And I guess when you have the CFO looking at the bottom line and saying, well, most of this came as a result of sales, not marketing. I don't see the data there. And of course, the budget cuts happen in the marketing department, not the sales department in that case. But we all know there has to be, marketing has to have been key to kind of getting the growth that has been seen in the company.
And it's really not about, I think it's in some cases, at least, these CFOs and CEOs and whatever, they actually like the idea of marketing and they would like to invest and continue the investment. But if you're not delivering a strong proof that it actually is part of the revenue machine of the company, that's in the end where they will end up cutting. And it's not the problem about cutting spend in sort of these like marketing. You can also say, if you have product-led growth, if you cut these things, the immediate impact on your numbers is great. It's like, oh, my CAC to new revenue just, fantastic. It's like, we spent 0 on marketing this month and we closed, 500,000 euros of new business, or dollars of new business. Fantastic. But like that 100,000 euros you cut in marketing spend, that was actually going to drive the business of, next quarter or even the quarter after that. So the impact is much later. And if you don't have a way for you to demonstrate that to the CFO, like whoever is the decision maker here, it's very bad for the company. It's also like, of course, it's bad for me as a marketer that I don't get to do the job I love, but it's also super bad for the company, which is going to be challenged on growth 6 months from now or 9 months from now, because everything that was going to build that, flow of sales just disappeared, right?
That's a really good point, actually. I think, a lot of people, when marketing campaigns are launched, they're kind of expecting instant results. The last one question I've been dying to ask you throughout this whole podcast, it's kind of a selfish question because it's something I, as a B2B marketer, struggle with. Attributing revenue to campaigns, and specifically when the target audience is contacts that have been previous opportunities but have gone cold. Previously there's been campaigns that have run on them, and all of a sudden, if they were cold, we then re-engage them, they convert, but we still have that issue of people saying, well, I knew these people from way back and this is why they've converted, and kind of stories like that. But just one in a million stories I'm sure a lot of marketers have. So what advice do you have for B2B marketers like me who struggle to attribute revenue to the campaigns they're running?
Well, I think it sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things, but it's basically having, I think one is insist on having a way of knowing what actually happened. So I think that's quite fundamental. So every time that you can measure and have data around this, just make sure that you get it. So collect the data so that it can be analyzed, so that you can know what worked and what didn't work. I think, of course, if you are in settings where there's fundamental distrust between sales and marketing, that's never good. I think it's about building trust between the teams and really sort of acknowledging that this is a joint project. It isn't like sales versus marketing. Everybody's trying to achieve the same thing, which is, make the company grow, close good sales that become good customers and like companies that enjoy and the product you're building. So I think it's really like the fundamental thing there is probably not about the tooling or about the product. It's more about sort of, create an atmosphere and an environment of collaboration between the teams. I think that's super important. So make sure that everybody understands that, hey, let's look at if you have a way of inspecting the full customer journey, like all the data you have, take a look at some of it and say, okay, so we won this deal. Let's go back in time and see what actually did happen. Okay, yes, a lot of companies like our own, is like there will always be sales touches because you can't really buy the product without talking to sales. So they'll always be there. And there can be, early sales outreach. We've done that too. But that doesn't mean that that was what created the deal. I think you need to look at, you need a way of having all the data of the entire customer journey so you can look at it. So I think that's really start by looking at some of these journeys together. Sometimes you might also have, depends on the size of the deals you're closing. If you're closing large deals in low volume, do sort of a post-mortem of one deal and say what actually did happen, right? So that everybody can agree that, yes, we reached out to this customer in our outbound motion 2 years ago, then nothing happened. Then they were hit by these campaigns, and there was a period of sort of activity, and then then everybody will agree that, well, okay, maybe this early outreach was also part of it. Nobody should object to saying that. Of course, that was also this brand building, and if you have good people doing outreach, that also helps put you on the map with customers. Then you have later on campaign comes in, this kind of intervention that puts you back on the map. Maybe they are the right place and time to buy the type of product you're selling. I think the fundamental thing is make sure that everybody agrees that it's a team play. I think that's so fundamental. And if that's not the case, then try to, get to that place, right? And I think that typically goes, it's both directions, right? Everybody has to move a bit and realize that, okay, this is a joint effort when we're closing deals. Yeah,
everyone has a job to do. I think that's really good advice, because now that I think about it, a lot of the successful campaigns we've seen have had one thing in common, and that's sales and marketing alignment. They've been collaborating from the get-go. They've been aligned from the start. They have a really good relationship. They understand the role that they need to play. So a lot of the campaigns I run for clients are around account-based marketing. So we actually really need sales involvement in those. It's crucial to get sales alignment, because the knowledge that they have on the target accounts is very much needed. So I find that, you can't have a successful account-based marketing campaign unless you have alignment between those two teams.
No, it's so fundamental. And I think it's, if you can find, like, if it doesn't exist, then you can find sort of, proof that it should exist. So like inspect individual customer journeys, or let's say you are doing some kind of ABM outreach, and sometimes you can see the effect directly of that. I'm reaching out to these companies via maybe a LinkedIn campaign, and now they're on a website. Then if you can go to sales and say, hey, look, I did the campaign here. Now they're on the website. Now it's time to call them. That kind of just things where you're collaborating about the deal, really. Like if there is this sort of like, oh, we're not really a team, then if you can, pass the ball to the other players in a really nice way, it's also good. Like, hey, look at this beautiful list of companies that I just targeted. And now they're maybe ready, like, and, so if you can serve up some really good opportunities for the sales team, I think it's just thinking about ways where you can make it obvious that the collaboration is good for the company. I think that's
absolutely. I think this is what I love about account-based marketing as well. I mean, I have done a lot of traditional marketing back in the days, but I have come across, instances where, there's people on the website, they're downloading content. However, when sales gets on the phone with them, they're like, hey, marketing, these people aren't qualified. They don't have the budgets. They're not from the right company. So with account-based marketing, you don't have that problem, because you're already saying, these are the accounts we're going to target. And it's all about getting engagement, collaborating, aligning, and following up at the right time.
And the case that you mentioned, whereas like, say, content downloads, I think it's also just super valuable feedback from sales. I say, hey, you gave me these leads. They're not good. It's okay. Then what would it take to make them good? Okay, maybe like weed out the ones that are sort of not non-ICP. Like, only give me the ICP ones. Okay. Maybe they're good leads. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're, because they are, at a random stage in a buying process. They may not be looking for your product because they're just downloading content. Maybe they're good leads. Maybe they are not. So if sales says, oh, they were great leads. Okay, now you're working together. If they say they're still not good leads, they say, you know what? I'm going to hold on to these leads for a little while longer. The next time I'm going to try to do whatever my idea is, how to sort of upgrade them to, so that I give something useful to sales. So just, it is really sometimes taking that kind of harsh feedback of saying, your work, what you gave me was shit. Okay, let me try to improve on it. Sometimes if the collaboration isn't great, then the feedback can come in sort of in a bad way. But at least if there's feedback, that's a path forward.
That's a good point, actually. I think knowing when to pass them on to sales, and that needs to be data driven. So because I've seen instances where sales has called people upon downloading an asset, and that has either gone horribly wrong or actually really well. But it's so individual to the company, but you don't know unless you have that data. So I think, that's a crucial metric to measure. Let's talk a little bit about the changing consumer. I don't know how much you've noticed in the space. I've been obsessed with this since the pandemic, how the B2B consumers have changed. I think what we're seeing nowadays quite a lot is, the way people shop. They prefer to do all of their own research. They prefer a self-serve model when they, visit a website. I even find that people are generally 60% of the way through the buyer journey before they get in touch with sales. What are some things that you have seen, some behaviors that have been possibly impacted by the pandemic that have changed the consumer or the target audience a little bit?
I think that what you mentioned there is definitely, that is very real. I think it was something that was, it was something that was moving and happening also before the pandemic, but the pandemic really accelerated it.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies were forced online. They were forced to sort of move to a more digital sales process, offer up more more information for the buyers. And it just accelerated this desire from the buyer side to be more in control of the buying process. So it accelerated that. I think that's very much so. It was already happening before, but there was a period of a lot of things that people were usually doing, like field sales, doesn't work, right? Physical meetups, a lot of tactics that people were doing before stopped working, and meant, okay, we'll have to put something else in place. And a lot of buyers realized, okay, I can actually buy these very complex products without having a salesperson visit my office. I can just do some research, book a demo or book a sales call, and then buy it. I think it accelerated that. So the sort of if you think of, in the B2C space, has been like 20-25 years earlier, right? In the sense that a lot of sales were fully automated in that space. Like people of course still go to shops for that experience, but a lot of revenue in the B2C space is generated without human intervention at all. People just research, buy, it happens, right? And I think that is happening. That way of going to market is coming to B2B, and the pandemic definitely accelerated that.
Absolutely. I think another thing as well, you make a good point there. It was happening before the pandemic as well. And I think possibly a reason for that is the millennial generation. I think I read a statistic that said that in about 1 or 2 years, they're going to make up 75% of the workforce. And a lot of them are actually in decision-making roles. And it's definitely a generation that grew up with technology. They're more used to doing their own research. They're more used that, they can use technology a little bit better to find what they're looking for. We spoke about how you came up with Dreamdata, the challenges that you had initially, some of the amazing insights that you've given us on, reasons for why you've been successful as well, which has been incredible. We spoke about how the pandemic has accelerated changes in the way people shop and buy, the consumers. I wanted to focus on something a little bit more positive, and I wanted to ask you personally, what are you looking forward to in the future? I know at the moment it's a little bit, there's a lot of negative energy out there. I want to hear something positive.
I think in general, I think from a business standpoint, of course, I'm looking forward to things like quieting down a little bit. I think that'll be great. I think from our business standpoint, I'm looking forward to offering more of these solutions where sort of auto optimization. I'm very excited about that, where we're offering something where you, instead of constantly having to monitor and make decisions and implement, then you can sort of set something up that works forever, more or less. So like auto optimization options for different ad platforms. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, say, being able to set up audiences that are just continuously updated and fed to ad platforms and things. So anything that gets us closer to sort of automating revenue. If we were going back to the discussion about like the B2C world, I'm looking forward to sort of B2B go-to-market becoming even more consumerized. I'm excited about that.
I think
if I'm not
happening.
A millennial, even if I'm not a millennial, because I'm very much on their side in the sense that I am like a person. I prefer researching. I prefer trying. I prefer. I like that. So I'm looking forward to that. Like I don't see it as negative at all. I'm sort of looking forward to that future.
No, you're right. I think that's pretty amazing. And as long as we understand that consumer as well, we can do things in marketing to really help, put together campaigns that will work well for that type of consumer.
And I would also say that it's also something that just puts marketing firmly in the driving seat, right? If you look at Amazon B2C, they don't have a lot of salespeople, right? So it is, in general, an automated go-to-market is a marketing-driven go-to-market, as I see it. So it's something that is putting more and more emphasis on the importance of all the different aspects of the discipline of marketing.
Yeah. And speaking of Amazon as well, something I've noticed is a lot of marketing automation in there, which I love seeing. So one of my favorite tools, marketing automation. So for sure. Last question. I love asking this question because it's just nice to chat to inspiring people that are out to change the world. They've come with great ideas, they've made them work. So what gets you out of bed in the morning? What inspires you?
I think like a lot of the things we do, solving problems, I would say seeing what I love is seeing customers being happy about using the product and seeing that it's actually doing some of what we intended it to do, so that we didn't just, build something and nobody came, but, people they're using it. So that inspires me. Of course, I have a family. I love getting up to my family in the morning. So that definitely also helps me get out of bed. But from a business standpoint, there's like seeing that's the vision is materializing, even if it's like, I think most startup founders will agree that it always feels like it's too slow, but it's like something is happening. There's more and more of it happening. Yeah.
You definitely have a good purpose there, because you're helping, marketers get excited about doing the things that they're doing, because they can finally prove that it works or it doesn't work, and they just need to change it. But there's definitely a purpose there, and I think it's exciting. So well done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for chatting to me on SaaS Stories today. It was lovely to meet you, and I look forward to more chats in the future.
Thank you, Joanna. It was great being on the show.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been the SaaS Stories Podcast, brought to you by Hat Media, a nerdy marketing agency that has worked with some of the biggest global B2B technology brands. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. For even more resources, visit our website at hatmedia.com.au, where we share guides, ebooks, and webinars on all things marketing to help you grow. Until next time, happy SaaSing.